Hello, mortals. I'm the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. And it is time for another game of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their cover. I'll be looking at January new releases on Goodreads in the categories of young adult, science fiction, and fantasy, and hopefully choosing one book to add to my TBR this month. And first up is Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. There's a quote here by Neil Gaiman. I have not heard of this author. The cover does look more like a horror novel because it looks like a heart, but if you look closely, it's actually a woman's dress and a woman sitting down, I guess on her knees, with her dress draped around her like a heart. It's kind of cool, but obviously this isn't the type of novel I like, so I'm going to shove it. Next up is When You Get the Chance by Emma Lord. And it says, a search for her birth mother, a crush on her rival. Here we go again. So it looks like a contemporary, maybe rom-com. Looks kind of cute. I like the cover. It's kind of this rose pink and it's kind of cute. I like the graphics, but obviously this isn't my type of book, so I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Ivory Key by Akshaya Raman. Excuse me if I mispronounce that. I kind of like this cover. It looks like I guess a mandala. It says The Ivory Key is the epic young adult fantasy sibling story I've been waiting for. Oh, a rich world and satisfying slow burn romance. Oh, it did say series. But I do like the graphics of this cover. Not really into slow burn romance. But dang, just based on this cover, I'm going to shelve it. Next up is Cold, The Night, Fast the Wolves. The Cold Never Breaks, Neither Will She by Meg Long. Don't know this author. The cover does not look great. It looks very, very photoshopped. It looks kind of amateurish if I'm honest. But I assume this is some type of fantasy, werewolf, paranormal adventure. But nonetheless, just based on the cover, I'm going to shove it. Next up is The Kindred by Alekia Dow. This one's not my favorite type of cover too. Obviously, this is a fantasy romance. One bond can save a kingdom. But I'm not thrilled with the artwork. It's not terrible, but not the type of book for me. So I'm going to shove it. Now we move on to science fiction. First up is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. I mean, it's an attractive piece of artwork, but it's not really telling me too much about what this is. We know it's science fiction. I'm getting Handmaid's Tale, but I don't know. I'm just not getting enough from the cover to make me want to pick it up, so I'm going to shove it. Next up is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. I don't know about this one. It has a very, I guess, ancient feeling with that. It looks like a faded oil painting of a sky and then these old-fashioned looking moons going through their phases. How High We Go in the Dark. Again, it's one of those pretty covers that tell me nothing about the book. And I mean, there's not even a blurb or anything to enlighten me. So just based on the cover, I'm going to shove it. Next we have Light Years from Home, a novel by Mike Chen. And I've heard of Mike Chen. I have not read anything by him yet. Not crazy about this cover either. I mean, there's a rainbow leading to a lady house. That's a black and white sketch. There's a little man walking down the rainbow bridge. And we have a background of stars. Don't know what it's about, and I don't think the cover is very attractive, so I'm going to shove it. Next we have Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi, and I think this is an author I've been wanting to read as well, and I do like the cover. I like the big fonts for Goliath in sort of that gold, and their cutouts against sort of this black and white background. It looks like masks. It looks like real people, but in the shape of masks on is that money? No, I guess it's on Against a Rock. Author of Riot Baby, Lee Bardugo says Onyebuchi sets fire to the boundary between fiction and reality. I do like the cover. I'm going to shelve it. And finally, in science fiction, The Unfamiliar Garden by Benjamin Percy. Well, there's space, and there's this weird looking design that makes it hard to read the font. I don't like this cover at all. I am going to shove it. Now we move on to fantasy, and first up is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan, and gorgeous cover. Gorgeous cover. It almost looks like embroidery or a mosaic. It's very Asian inspired, and there's a woman, you can only see the back of her head in that same artistic style. Like this cover a lot. I, of course, am going to have to shelve it. Next we have Servant Mage by an author I know. Well, I don't know, but I've read before, Kate Elliott. I believe she writes LGBT fantasy, maybe. And it's a nice picture of a dragon. Doesn't tell me a lot about the story, except it's going to be traditional epic fantasy, maybe. And I like the artwork. It's a little generic. I don't know. You know what? Just based on the author's name, because I haven't read her in years, I think I'm going to, and I do like the cover, even though it's not telling me that much, except there's a dragon in it. I'm going to go ahead and shelve it. Next we have A Kata Woman by Nnedi Okorafor. I just recently picked one of Nnedi's books for Shelve It or Shove It, which was Noor. I think I had my expectations a little too high because I was a little disappointed in Noor, but I want to give Nnedi Okorafor another chance. I don't know if it should be with this book. I just feel, gosh, I think I'm going to shove it, but with a little explanation. I want to be recommended from someone that I know, Fit to Be Read, or Cappuccino, or Lynette, or one of my regulars on my live streams to recommend me the next Nnedi Okorafor book to read, because I don't want to be disappointed and I want to give this author another chance. Next we have The Starless Crown by James Rollins. Now, I'm going to have to look this up, and I'll cut this out if I'm completely wrong, but I think this is also James Clemens, and he normally writes thriller books, but he wrote one of my favorite fantasy series called Witchfire, and then he started a series and then stopped in the middle of it, which really pissed me off. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about this author. But just looking at the cover, it's giving me some type of horror. There's a quote by Terry Brooks. I'm so curious about this, but I'm going to hold back and shove it. And finally is Battle of the Linguist Mages by Scotto Moore. And it's basically just the font, which looks like kind of retro neon. And there's little symbols around it that looks like 8-bit gaming symbols, like a sword and a question mark and a heart and a key. I'm going to think this is going to be a humorous fantasy, contemporary fantasy maybe. I'm very intrigued by the title, but the cover's just okay. No, I'm going to have to shove it. Now this book and a couple of the other books, I may have looked at the blurb, but I'm only looking at the cover of the book, so I don't get the luxury of reading the blurb. So let's go over what has been shelved. 1 Young Adult, The Ivory Key by Akshaya Raman. 1 Science Fiction, Goliath by Tochi Onyebuchi. And 2 Fantasies, Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. And Servant Mage by Kate Elliott. Now just looking at the covers, there's one that I think is a standout from the rest, and that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. And that is what we're going to add to our TBR this month. So let's read the blurb and see what I've gotten myself into. Okay, right off, I'm not thrilled that this is a series, but it's called a duology, so there's going to be one more book out. I would have loved to have waited until both books were out, but it's a debut fantasy, which is exciting, so let me go ahead and read the blurb. Growing up on the moon, Xingyan was accustomed to solitude, unaware that she is being hidden from the feared celestial emperor who exiled her mother for stealing the elixir of immortality. But when Xingyan's magic flares and her existence is discovered, she is forced to flee her home, leaving her mother behind. Alone, powerless, and afraid, she makes her way to the Celestial Kingdom, a land of wonder and secrets. Disguising her identity, she seizes an opportunity to learn alongside the Emperor's son, mastering archery and magic, even as passion flames between her and the prince. To save her mother, Xingyan embarks on a perilous quest, confronting legendary creatures and vicious enemies across the earth and skies. But when treachery looms and forbidden magic threatens the kingdom, she must challenge the ruthless celestial emperor for her dream, striking a dangerous bargain in which she is torn between losing all she loves or plunging the realm into chaos. What a choice. Okay, I'm not crazy that there seems to be a large romance component, but it's called Daughter of the Moon Goddess, so I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I am kind of fascinated on a fantasy that draws from Chinese mythology, and I also like that it seems to be a little dark. So we shall see. Let me know in the comments below which book you would have picked just based solely on the cover. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you aren't already. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.